So hello and welcome to this video where we're going to hear from Barry Walton, who's going to share some testimony about his time during the COVID-19 crisis. So Barry, for those of the people that are listening into the video that haven't met you before, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Right. It's a job to reduce 81 years to 2 or 3 minutes, but let me start with age 16. I started going to church, and the only reason, I was single-minded even then, the only reason I started going was to find a girlfriend. Freely admit it. And I succeeded, by the way. 3 years later, I was converted, and that's when I started going to a Baptist church rather than the Anglican church. And then 9 years later, much to my amazement, God called me to be a minister. I'd been training to be a company accountant. That's what I'd done. And then came the call to Baptist ministry. And one of the things that will always stay with me was as I drove away from my wife in Birmingham, on the doorstep, there she was with a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 3-week-old baby. And I cleared off to Bristol to train for the ministry. I've been a Baptist minister in Southend. I've been a Baptist minister in Plymouth. And as well as that, I had a share in a national ministry with the Baptist Union when I was Home Mission Secretary. At the age of 63, it seemed right to retire, and we retired to Oakhampton and got involved in the Baptist church there. And it was about 10 years later that I felt God was calling me back into the ministry, and I became the minister of a small congregational church in Corfe Castle in Dorset. And then, nearly 3 years ago, Chris, my wife, had a stroke. And to sum it up very briefly, every aspect of my life changed. So that's a very brief summary of the life of Barry Walton.
Thank you, Barry, for that. That's really kind of you to share in that detail with us, and for people to know you a little bit better. And maybe you want to just say a bit later what happened when with Chris and where you ended up. But my next question for you is this. Now, I know, obviously, some people don't know, but I know the story. So I'm going to ask you this question. Now, at a time when most people over the age of 70 are being encouraged to self-isolate because they're in the high risk category, you've decided to volunteer in a care home. So tell us how this came about and what you've been up to.
Well, as you've already said, Chris, they warned the over 70s to stay at home. They didn't mention the over 80s. So that was my excuse. My wife became a resident of that particular care home just over 12 months ago. And at the end of last year, I became chaplain to that home. But then came the virus, and then the shutdown. Nobody was allowed to visit anybody in the home. After the shutdown had been going for about a fortnight, I was suddenly shown an appeal by that home asking for volunteers. And so literally within hours, both Kate, our youngest daughter, and I volunteered. Kate's been going into the home about once a week. I've been going in roughly every other day. It started by helping out with the cleaning, wiping things down, Then I help for a time in the kitchen, drying the dishes after the meal. But for the past few weeks, things have definitely changed, and I've been um, I've been asked to help individual members of staff who, for different reasons, have been finding things very tough. Um, Two folk in particular, both on the night shift, their needs were very different, but I've been thrilled to be of help. Yes, in a sense, I had to trust God and put my life in His hands, but I believed that I was doing what He wanted me to do, and so I've placed my health and the health of my family in His hands and have trusted Him. And clearly, God has blessed that commitment and has kept me healthy and safe thus far, and I thank Him for that.
Great, thank you, Barry, for sharing that. I mean, it mustn't be necessarily an easy environment to be in, and I know that obviously Chris is in the care home where you are serving, and so that must be lovely to be able to see Chris on a
Oh, yes.
regular basis as well.
Yeah, it's been absolutely great. Even though from Chris's point of view, she has very little awareness of what's going on. In a way, life passes her by, and it's a pleasure to see the pleasure on her face from something as simple as sometimes she might be in bed and I go and sit by the bed and hold her hand, or we watch television together, or sometimes we've listened to classic FM together. It takes you back to the very simple things of life.
Absolutely. And I mean, that leads on to our last question, and you've touched on this a little bit already. In what ways have you seen God at work in the care home during this time? We've often used the expression, and I know you're a fan of it. There's a missional expression about God is already at work. He's at work all the time, and
Yes.
we just need to catch up and find out where He's at work and how to join in. So, in what ways have you seen God at work in the care home during this time?
I think there are three ways that I've particularly seen Him at work. And the first one, as it were, may not seem obvious to those who are listening to me, but I would want to put, first of all, the way that the staff have accepted me. The other evening, I was there visiting the night shift, and before they actually start, they meet outside in order to have a cigarette together. And I joined them, not for a cigarette, but I joined them, I stood with them, and one of them turned to me and she said, "You're here because you're one of us." And I found that enormously encouraging. You are here because you are one of us. They have accepted me. I started off as Chris's husband. I then became Barry. Now I think I'm Barry the chaplain, but despite the Rev in front of my name, despite the title, I am one of them, and I'm very grateful for that. And then the second way that I'm seeing God at work, and this brings us almost back to the theme of prayer again. I think of two individuals, and it wouldn't be appropriate to mention names or their position, but two individuals at different times before the virus hit us. I said to them, "I have so much that I want to share with you, Would you be willing to allow me to do that? Would you be willing to set aside a time on a regular basis for me to share with you? And both of those individuals said yes. You know, these are people, one doesn't go to church, the other one goes to church, but it's in a foreign language, so he understands absolutely nothing of what's going on. And they have said yes to the opportunity of learning more about the faith. My prayer now is that their willingness, their desire to say yes, that God will actually take them that next step so we can actually arrange times for us to meet together and for me to share. So that's the second situation where I'm seeing God at work. And then the third situation is that whole business of being able to help individual members of staff. I was asked to see one particular member of staff. We met together on 2 occasions. And by the end of that, there was a very real sense that she had received help. And the incredible thing was, as a result of the help that I gave to that person, or the help that God gave through me, she was then asking for another member of staff to be allowed to meet up with me as well. That has taken place. One meeting has taken place, and by the time that you see and hear my testimony, the second meeting will have taken place. And so I am deeply grateful to God that He is bringing me into contact with individuals who have the need of his help. So yes, God is at work, and He's working His purpose out, even through an 81-year-old who's been told you ought to be staying at home and staying safe.
Excellent. Thank you, Barry. I thank you for your honesty as well in this testimony. It's great. And I think, I think it's a wonderful truth, isn't it? Actually, God is no respecter of age. He just wants a willing heart to serve Him, love Him, and to love those around us. And, in terms of age, we've heard a lot about Captain Tom more in the news, haven't we? And whether you're a young child right through to Tom's age, God can use you, and I think it's the small ways, like you said as well, that mean so much to people. Just a listening ear, just a presence to be with someone, and through those things. And each one of us can do that. I think we often think we have to do really big things in order for God to, use us. And actually, no, it's the simple things. It's the being there, isn't it? It's the presence. And it really does sound like that's what you are enabling at the care home at this crucial time when so many of the staff are struggling to cope and just need someone who's there for them. So well done, and keep up the good work. So we'll say goodbye for now, and yes, and I hope everyone that's tuned in has found this really helpful, and hopefully there'll be some more testimonies coming on the way. So thank you, Barry, and we'll see you again soon.
My pleasure. God bless.
God bless. Bye.